want to give you a little background. At this show last year, there were about a dozen people that met. And out of that meeting came the decision to hold a summit at pre-ANA. And we had about 70 people who showed up for the summit saying, we have to do something about counterfeits. We have to do something. It's impacting our business. These were primarily dealers, and I sat there with a little bit of hesitation because twice in my career with CoinWorld, I had covered big quote-unquote summits, and everybody rushed and said, this was along about 2008, 2009. We have to do something, we have to do something. We would go to a meeting, everybody would go home, and nothing happened. So when Kathy approached me about helping with this, I said, Kathy, I don't want to go to another meeting and nothing happens. So we formed a core group out of that summit and began to work on a vision and mission statement. And it was about a 5-page document that we boiled down to 1 page to focus it. And I think the problem was, before, it's such an all-encompassing area and topic to think about how do you approach it, that it just never got off the ground. And one of the key focuses for us now in forming the task force is that we are focusing on enabling law enforcement. Many of the laws that we need to go after counterfeiters already exist, and they have existed for years, but they're not being enforced. So we said, you know, we can't take off a big project on consumer education while we're trying to help and educate law enforcement. And so we are focusing on enabling law enforcement, which seems like maybe a tiny job. It's not. The first job was to find out who in this vast domain called law enforcement, who administers these laws. 9/11 changed the United States in so many ways, but fundamentally it changed the structure and responsibilities of law enforcement in this country. So, you know, I've had many dealers come to me in the last 2 or 3 months saying, you know, we call Secret Service, we call FBI, and we can't get them to return a call. We can't get them to investigate. What we have learned over the last 3 months is those agencies really don't deal with counterfeiting. Although historically Secret Service has the mandate to deal with paper money, and they still do, they really don't deal with counterfeiting of coins anymore. So we set about trying to find out who does. And it comes down to Homeland Security, which is a vast umbrella agency. And we found the division that deals with counterfeits, the people who investigate and prosecute within Homeland Security. We also found another important agency that I had heard of, but I thought all they did was go down to Texas and California and deal with people coming across illegally. It's called the Customs and Border Protection Agency. It's not even patrol anymore, it's a protection agency. And what they do and what their responsibilities primarily are for intercepting illegal goods coming into the United States from any other place in the world. whether the transaction initiated online or if it's contractually done through a trade agreement. If it is not properly documented, then it cannot come into the United States. We had a seminar Wednesday, and there are billions of dollars of items flowing into the United States legitimately every day. So they can only sample various products. Once they get a lead that maybe something is not right, they can really focus in, as we're learning, some really high-tech ways of identifying and possibly tracking, intercepting, and investigating. But they need those leads. And I won't attempt to quote how many millions of dollars, it's a staggering amount, every day that's coming in this country that they intercept that are illegal. They really did not have very much knowledge or interest in coins when we started talking to them in early February. Kathy and Philip Deal and I, and Uta Wartenberg, because she's doing some special research for us, had a 2-day session with Homeland Security and Customs and Border Patrol people in Washington, D.C. And let me give you a really quick explanation or illustration of where our education for them began. They said, you know, Secret Service and ICE, to some extent, we deal with counterfeit paper money, and we have to focus on that because it's $100 bills. And we said, but what about this? And I had an example of a 1-ounce American Eagle gold coin, which is denominated $50. First of all, they didn't know that the United States Mint produces that coin and sells it in the United States and worldwide. Secondly, they said, well, we can't get involved with that. That's only $50. We have to deal with the $100 bill, which is twice as much. And we said, do you understand that that coin is worth the spot price of gold plus extra? The United States Mint is selling this coin today for around $1,300. That was the game changer. They said, what? We didn't know this. So at that level, I sat down and created a 5-page document for them that they have now sent out to all their field offices, defining what a circulating coin is, what a bullion coin is, what a commemorative coin is, and the values and how it's valued, how it's issued, and even the fact that silver coins, like half dollars, dimes, quarters, are traded in bags, $1,000 bags, $500 bags, and that type of thing on the commodities exchange, the Chicago Board of Trade, for an example. And we even have information that some people, you know, you can trade commodities and never take possession of it. Then you can actually take possession of the bags, and some dealers do because they want to search them. And we have evidence that there are counterfeits showing up in the silver bags that are being traded on the commodities exchanges. They had no idea that this type of stuff is traded on the commodities exchanges. So we began at that level, have been talking with them, and have agreed to provide education and training for law enforcement. At those levels, we'll probably be dealing with state and local levels eventually, but we're starting, I guess, where we can get the biggest bang for our buck. And as we have organized, we have an 11-member committee, a core committee, steering committee, that will be guiding us as staff and as team members. And one of their focuses right now is on fundraising. ICTA agreed to take on this challenge and staff it, but the task force is entirely operational because of donations. We were extremely lucky to get a memorial donation of $50,000 to help us launch. But that's not going to take us very far. So we have a fundraising campaign that the group began working on Wednesday. Now, I mentioned that we have the steering committee, which is 11 members. From that, we have 8 work groups. And I suggested when we met in Florida in January to launch the task force, I said, we had about 50 people in the room, and I said, guys and gals, if you can't give us 10 to 12 hours a month, and sometimes it might be 10 hours a week of your voluntary time to work on projects, don't raise your hand. This is not a committee that you meet 1 or 2 times a year and pass a resolution or two. This is work. And we had people to step forward. On these 8 work groups, we have 3 to 5 people in each work group. And for instance, one of the key things that law enforcement has asked us for is to identify dealers and experts in every state and every major city, that if they encounter counterfeits, that they can go to that person and get a quick review to say yes. But that person has to be knowledgeable, they have to be vetted, and they have to be prepared and expert enough to testify in court if the people are charged. So we're in the process of just started that. There are several other ways that we can help them do their jobs better. We have a committee looking at laws and regulation, and I've already found out that we need to refine and get some of those things changed. But as we go forward, we're doing research. For instance, some of the preliminary research that we did is, are you familiar with Alibaba? Anybody ever seen Alibaba? For those of you who have not, that's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It's about 3 times the size of eBay. And it is out of China. And on Alibaba, the Border Protection Service told us that they deal with counterfeit goods coming into the United States, everything from, get this, counterfeit, what's the brand name? Charmin toilet paper, to aircraft parts for military and civilian airplanes. The full gamut, you name it, Gucci purses, watches, anything you can buy. Pharmaceuticals are really big. You can buy on Alibaba. I did some research, and within a couple of hours after I had visited a website that offers the 1-ounce American Eagle gold coin, and they advertise it as meets every test. It's the right size, the diameter, the weight, the design, every test that is traditionally done. It is a tungsten coin plated with gold. And I just visited the site, and then I got an email saying, if you're interested, we have a bulk program. If you can buy 50,000, we will offer you a price of $250, or $200, I'm sorry. Bear in mind, it does have a thin gold plate, So they do have real gold in it. But that's a coin that you could sell for $1,300 or more on the market. That's a pretty good profit margin for you. And I thought, 50,000. So I responded to them. I wanted to find out more information. I said, 50,000, how do I get that into the United States? No worry. You can have it in 6 days. We have an inside person on DHL, and it will be delivered to your door in 6 days from the time you place the order and the funds settle in our account. That's pretty tempting. Now, there are all levels of things that you can buy. Any coin, any bullion coin, a commemorative coin, U.S. coin, you tell them what you want, they will make it. And usually can deliver it within a week to 10 days. Now, what we learned from the Border Protection is the massive orders are part and parcel of probably crime syndicates. You know, this month they're selling counterfeit toilet paper. Next month it's airplane parts. Next month is coins. The entity that was going to sell me 50,000 gold coins, and you can go on Alibaba and see the same thing, they produce about 150 different products. These are huge factories. They're not the little cottage industries that we wrote about in Coin World in 2008 and 2009. To give you some idea of the progression of where these guys are headed, comparing the 2008 and 9 coins on a scale of 1 to 10, you remember Dr. Greg DeBay and I did some workshops and seminars from A&A, and we had a lot of the coins that DeBay had ordered. At that time, Greg developed a scale of 1 to 5, and we hadn't seen really a 5. His scale is 1 to 4. The 4s were difficult to identify. Comparatively, what they're putting out today is up at 9, and I would rate some at 9.5. That's the progression over that short period of time. So we're dealing with what is coming at us in our marketplace is massive. And that's why we're focused on helping the people that can begin to stop it at our borders. Once it gets here in the United States, how do you investigate and charge people? I call the smaller scale stuff crimes of opportunities. I don't know if any of you read of the recent case in Minnesota. 2 teenage boys, 16 and 17-year-olds, were charged with defrauding the public, and what they were doing was ordering the lesser value coins, counterfeits, from Alibaba, then selling them on Craigslist. And also, they had an offer on Craigslist if you want to exchange your coins that you have, your collector coins for the small gold bars or gold coins, then we will meet you. And of course, the person is getting a fake item from them. The day of the arrest, there was more than $50,000 involved in that transaction. The follow-up stories that I have seen, that case alone could go into the millions. And there was an interview, and one of the boys supposedly said, "We're not doing anything that other people that we know are not doing. People are just like making a few dollars here and there, a few $1,000s. You know, you got to eat. We want to buy a car or whatever." That's one of our problems. People have been doing this with impunity. How many times are you hearing about people being arrested for selling counterfeit coins? So, you know, what's the chance of somebody getting arrested incarcerated for this. So there are 2 or 3 different layers that law enforcement are looking at. Any of you who are interested in working in some of the work groups, we have much more information that we're going to be posting online, and I'm going to be at the ICTA table throughout today. Be glad to talk with you further, more in depth. But I just wanted to give you an overview of what we're facing, and I think I'm not trying to scare you. It is a problem that we definitely can get out in front of, but we have work to do. And I'll make an appeal here. I don't usually do this, but if you can help us, if you're a collector and can donate $10, $15, $25, $50, that would be super. We have the online site that you can go online and do that with a credit card if you'd like. And we are doing campaign or fundraising in the dealer and also the suppliers. Our first area, our group that we're going to be talking to in June, Kathy and I are attending a worldwide conference of the International Precious Metals Institute. And these are the people, the refiners, and like the people who carry brinks and those kinds of people. They derive income from our industry, but they're not down on our bourse floors. So we're kind of educating them and saying, you need to join us. It affects your livelihood as well as ours. So that's kind of where we are. We're at the beginning, and we hope that we can begin to not only educate, but help law enforcement do their jobs better. And I have to tell you that we have been overwhelmed and really, really pleased at the reception. At the highest levels in Washington, D.C., and the people we had with us on Wednesday from the field offices, they're saying, hey, we now understand, we want to help, and we want you to help us. And to have that kind of reception, we understand, is really unusual at that level of law enforcement. And I have to tell you, over the last 3 weeks, I've talked to Homeland Security 2 and 3 times a week, and sometimes 2 and 3 times a day, because they have already have active cases on some of the information that we have been able to provide them. And we're just starting. So with that, I'll stop, and if you have questions, I'll try to.
One question about, it's one thing about the direct shipment from China here to the United States, but what about Europe, France, Germany, all of the other, what are we going to see in 10, 20 years where they might have gone there and then all of a sudden stuff's coming in the back door instead of directly?
Well, the thing is, they're already in every country in the world. South Africa is having a huge problem, the Cougaran.
How about Canada?
Canada, the maple leaf is a major target. Also Australia and Austrian mint. Through the World Mint Directors Conference, we have liaison with them, and they are also working on this. So it's not unique to the United States.
And the UK about the
Oh, the UK. You're probably aware that very recently the UK they have withdrawn from circulation the pound coin and issued a new pound coin because of the massive counterfeits in circulation. So it is not unique to the United States. It's confronting us because we're the largest marketplace for collector and bullion coins in the world. So it's hitting us more direct, but it's everywhere. By the way, the Chinese are not the only ones involved. The Chinese, the Russians, and the Bulgarians have been identified kind of in that order. Chinese definitely the largest producer of counterfeits. The Russians are in there. They have targeted more of the commemoratives in Europe. And the Bulgarians are active in the commemoratives and also in the ancients field. So it touches all of us. Pat?
I think
compared to 2008 and 9, it's a little easier to get government interest now with the change in the Hobby Protection Act 2 or 3 years ago. So you
Yes.
can go after the distribution network and not just the manufacturers.
Absolutely, and that is where really law enforcement is saying we have to identify these networks, and we need to stop it at the border, but we also need to go after how it is entering the marketplace in this country. And they're very sophisticated networks, and then there's those smaller individuals. But all of them can be damaging.